What is the connecting part between two bones?
Joint.
When you create a table chart, the data in horizontal dimension is organized in rows and the data in vertical dimension is organized in what?
Columns.
What do we call short forms like UN for the United Nations or admin for administration?
Abbreviations.
What do we call the vegetable that is like a white, bulbous stem with green leaves?
Fennel.
What is the term for a group of cells in an organism that are similar in structure and function?
Tissue.
What do we call the procedure of obtaining a small piece of tissue for examination under a microscope?
Biopsy.
What is the main ingredient in chocolate?
Cocoa.
What type of gas do we breathe out?
Carbon dioxide.
What do we call the length of a line that goes around a circle or any other curved shape?
Circumference perimeter.
What do we call the fourth day of the week?
Thursday.
Where can we find the footnote on a page?
Bottom.
To which of our sense do all of the following words relate? Opaque, vivid, brilliant, shiny.
Vision.
What do we call a baby cat?
Kitten kitty.
What do we call an expert in a field?
Specialist.
What is the term used for the life history of a person written by himself?
Autobiography memoir.
What is the term for two siblings who are born from one mother at the same time?
Twin.
Where do polar bears live?
Arctic North Pole.
What do we call someone who studies living organisms, often specializing in a specific area of biology?
Biologist.
Which river is known as the longest in Europe?
Volga.
If you do something every day, you do daily what?
Routine.
What is the opposite of exporting?
Importing.
Where do we find urban areas, in a city or countryside?
In a city.
What do we call a student who works for a period of time at a job to get experience?
Intern apprentice.
What is the term used for see-through items such as clear glass?
Transparent lucid pellucid crystal.
What do guitars and violins have in common?
Strings.
Which organ do cardiologists specialize in?
Heart.
How to describe people who are the original, earliest known inhabitants of a region?
Indigenous.
What do we call the practice of growing aquatic animals or plants for food?
Aquaculture.
Name a city in the U.S.
New York, Washington, Boston.
What is the part that is inside a nuts or a seed shell?
What is the altitude related to, weight or height?
Height.
What is the part that is inside a nuts or a seed shell?
Kernel.
What do we call the joint that connects the top and bottom parts of the leg?
Knee.
What is the name of the machine used to dry clothes after they have been washed?
Dryer.
Which field of study uses the periodic table?
Chemistry.
What is the room that is under the ground floor?
Basement.
What do we call the medical examination of a dead body to determine the cause of death?
Autopsy.
How many years are there in a half of century?
50.
How many countries are involved in a mutual agreement?
2.
What do we say if we call brothers and sisters in a same way?
Siblings.
What kind of food do almonds, pistachios and walnuts fall into?
Nut.
What is the name of the device used to amplify sound, especially for musical instruments?
Amplifier.
When an animal's bite is described as venomous, what potentially dangerous substances they might contain?
Venom.
What do we call the meat of a pig that is used for food?
Pork.
What do we call a word that is formed by combining two separate words?
Compound word.
What is the common name for sodium chloride?
Salt.
What is the largest planet in our solar system?
Jupiter.
How often does a bicentennial event occur?
Every 200 years.
What is the primary function of the heart in the human body?
Pumping blood.
What is the smallest bone in the human body?
Stapes.
How many roses are in a dozen?
12.
What do we call a baby horse?
Foal.
What do you call a period of 10 years?
A decade.
What do we call a covered walk in a convent, monastery, college, or cathedral, typically with a wall on one side and a colonnade open to a quadrangle on the other?
Cloister.
What is the straight line between the center of a circle and any point on its outer edge?
Radius.
What is the famous bell in London called?
Big Ben.
The equator divides the Earth into how many hemispheres?
2.
What is the hard substance that is formed by the bones of very small sea animals?
Coral.
What do we call a person who practices the study of the Earth's physical features, resources, and climate?
Geographer.
What do we call a young dog?
Puppy.
If fact is a real happening, what is an unreal event or unreal story?
Fiction.
What is a standard set of letters that is used to write one or more languages based upon the general principle?
Alphabet.
What do we call the female head of a family?
Mistress, hostess, matriarch.
Which climate zone do the countries like Vietnam and Thailand belong to?
Tropical zone, tropics.
What do you call your cousin's father?
Uncle.
What do we call the machine used to exercise by simulating walking or running?
Treadmill.
Which object can be put into a handbag, a bicycle or a book?
A book.
What do you call a person that can't hear?
Deaf.
What gas do plants release during photosynthesis?
Oxygen.
If a car is not stationary, what is it doing?
Moving.
What is the big musical instrument that has 88 black and white keys?
Piano.
What do we call a specialist medical doctor who performs operations?
Surgeon.
What do we call the pieces of skin above and below the eye?
Eyelid.
What is the term used for raised tall geographical structures that usually have cooler climate?
Mountains, hills.
If a person's blood alcohol content exceeds the law's maximum, which everyday activity is he or she prohibited from undertaking?
Driving.
What is the term used for a place or an institution where one can park extra funds to earn a return or borrow funds by making an extra payment?
Bank.
What do we call the words that make up a language?
Vocabulary, vocabularies.
Which type of meal is usually eaten outdoors, picnic or buffet?
Picnic.
What is the opposite of urban?
Rural.
What is the architecture with smooth, steeply sloping sides meeting at an apex, used as a tomb?
Pyramid.
What organ pumps blood through the body?
Heart.
What do we call a movie played in the afternoon?
Matinee.
What do we call the regular beating of blood through your body, and you can feel it especially when you touch your wrist?
Pulse sphygmus.
What do people cast in an election?
Votes.
What do we call a person who studies the stars, planets, and other celestial objects?
Astronomer.
What do we call the two metal bars that trains run on?
Rail track.
What do we call the collection and study of stamps?
Philately.
Which word beginning with C is a synonym of idea?
Concept.
What do we call a tower-like structure providing ventilation?
Chimney.
Which one is a psychologist good at, surgery or therapy?
Therapy.
What is more fuel efficient, car or truck?
Car.
How many months are in a year?
12.
What is the term for an intense snowstorm with high winds and low visibility?
Blizzard.
What is the largest country in South America?
Brazil.
What is the thing that has iron inside and can attract iron?
Magnet.
What is the main gas that makes up the sun?
Hydrogen.
What is the word for book that someone writes in order to tell the story of their own life?
Autobiography.
What is the term for a large crack or opening in the Earth's surface?
Crevice.
What do we call an underground pipe that is used to carry sewage away from houses?
Sewer.
Which animal does wool come from?
Sheep.
What do we call the mark left on the muddy ground when a person has walked by?
Footprint footmark.